we need to talk about Bochy's place in history now. So Bochy becomes the 6th manager with 4 or more World Series championships. He joins Joe McCarthy, who had 7, Casey Stengel 7, Connie Mack 5, Joe Torre had 4. By the way, Bochy almost went down last night. Fox didn't unhook the wire around his legs. You know the TNT Shaquille O'Neal fall? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
No. And Bochy almost goes down. They're like, Boch! Ortiz, the only good thing he's done on television all playoffs long, Ortiz gets up and sprints on over to try to catch Bochy before he collapses because the TV wire got him.
So I was thinking about this, and this could be a broader topic with Bochy in his place all time.
Oh, I thought you were thinking about him collapsing on the ground.
No.
Smoltz just wrapped it around his leg.
Yeah, Smoltz wanted him to collapse, as it was. I think he's clearly now ahead of Lasorda. I think that gap is there. The other guy, the guys from yesteryear, the Joe McCarthy's and the Casey Stengels, it's too hard for me to understand.
Let's take them out.
So it's really between him and Torre, and those two.
What about La Russa?
I think he's okay. So I think he's ahead of Tony. Tony's tough. Tony's gonna be remembered better than Tony. I'm sorry, La Russa is.
That's Tony too.
Looked at as better than Torre, even though he has less rings.
He is.
Yeah, if you go and look at the list, if you go look at these, hey, who's the best manager of all time? La Russa's generally higher than Torre. Sparky Anderson is another one that's in that, and he's in the 70s, 80s, so he's relatively recent within the last half century. The Torre one's difficult to judge because he only won with the Yankees.
Yeah.
And that's both easier and more difficult. You got to deal with George. That was a pain in the butt.
The pressure.
And the pressure of New York, but you also had the advantages of
the payroll
in the Yankees. So it's really tough to gauge Torre. I think the Torre comp is the best one. La Russa's difficult because he won La
Russa multiple teams. That may be the comp.
Multiple teams and multiple decades too, just like Bochy.
That may be the comp because you could argue, the San Fran teams didn't ever feel as good as the Yankee teams, but Bochy's done it with 2 different organizations.
2 organizations, 2 leagues.
That's more impressive.
2 leagues, 2 organizations. La Russa did it with 2 teams, 2 organizations. I'm sorry, 2 organizations, 2 leagues as well. Torre did it with just the Yankees. Now, he was a good manager elsewhere, but he wasn't this great one. So I don't know. It's tough. I mean, you get any one of those 3 guys, I mean, you're gonna be successful.
If you talk about in the live ball era, and you just take away the managers who were with the Yankees, right? Because there's the top 3 most managers with the most, have all been with the Yankees because that's the organization. Then it's Bochy and Walter Alston with the most World Series titles. Alston, who had been with the Dodgers in the 50s. So it's right there. The other thing you got to remember here is
Sparky's got 3.
But Boch has 4 now. So we're talking about
Correct.
4.
Yeah.
And so Boch is, like I said, I was back listening to the day after the Scherzer thing, and what we all agreed on at the time was we said if they were to win the World Series, because we were talking about this is going to happen. We said if they were to win the World Series, this would be remembered as, from starting pitching and bullpen combo, one of the worst pitching staffs to ever win, is how we would look back on it. Yeah. And that's something that Bochy, his whole calling card has been pushing the right buttons with pitchers and bullpen, and to go 11-0 on the road, do something that is a historic run in any sport. I mean, when you put a run like this in the context of his 4 titles, I think he's way up at the top.
If you look at...
he's way up at the top. I want you all to pinpoint it. That's the point of Sports Talk Radio.
He is the top modern-day manager.
Okay. And I almost feel like he's not launched into that immediately.
Yeah.
This is I compare him to Phil Jackson in many different ways. The Rangers were not as ready. This is what I said on NBC5 this morning with Laura Harris.
Well.
While drinking RJ Sham bubbly.
Gross.
Backwash. The Lakers needed Phil to put them over the top. The Rangers were not nearly as ready as the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe, but Bochy had the same effect. He also has that Zen master type calm, right? He doesn't. I want to ask around and ask Bochy and have KMC ask him, do you get upset? Do you get angry? Does he snap on anyone? Does he lash out? It's that Phil Jackson did, but the winning, the calmness, the immediacy, that was my Phil Jackson comparison.
I just went to some of the websites that I went to for looking at some of these lists, and this was before the season. This was before the season. They had Bochy as the 11th.
Said that.
They had Bochy 11 all time, number 11. I never saw him higher than 7.
See,
but generally
launched up there.
Generally.
But a fourth title does make it different.
A fourth title does make it different. Now, in this particular one, La Russa's third.
How many titles does La Russa have?
3.
3, yes.
Yeah. 06, 11, and then one of them with the A's, but he went to 3 straight with the A's, I think, right?
Yeah,
88,
and that's the other thing we got to factor in here is Bochy has been to a World Series with 3 different teams because he also got there with the Padres.
He got there with
lost,
the Padres
but he got
as well.
there with he's been to the. He was in the World Series in '98. He's been there. Like, I mean, he's somebody who's been good for 25 years.
Like they all have a trump card. Bochy's trump card is he went to the World Series with 3 different teams, won it with 2. La Russa's is he went to 3 straight. Torrey's is he won 3 straight. Like, and I think that's the one thing that if you wanted to look at it from La Russa's standpoint, okay, he went to 3 in a row there, or Torrey, he won 3 in a row. That puts him, it's hard to beat that. But the other 2 guys can't touch the fact that he's been to the World Series with 3 different organizations. Like that's impressive. That's super special.
Bruce Bochy on winning the championship in year 1 right here.
It's special. I'm not going to lie, it's special to come here in my first year, with the team that was determined to play winning baseball and never won a championship. But as far as me, that's a byproduct of what those guys did out there and what the front office did. I was along for the ride, trust me. I was very fortunate and blessed, to be able to get back into baseball in this type of situation. I was in Nashville just relaxing and had 3 years off and come back and be in this position. I've said so many times, I'll say it again, I'm blessed.
And nobody wanted it. Like any team could have had it.
That is so forgotten. I figured he was damaged goods. Maybe he was overrated.
I think what it was is that the sport had shifted so much to cheap young managers with no experience that are just going to do what the front office tells them to do. That's what the sport has wanted. If you go down the list, if you just go look at who's managing in the sport right now, that's basically what they wanted. And Chris Young was like, all right, well let's pair old and new together, and we'll figure this out. And he went for Bruce Bochy, and it was. I mean, you could make the argument that it was the biggest acquisition that they've had.
Yeah, it wasn't DeGrom.
It wasn't DeGrom. You could say it wasn't Seager or Simeon, but I think you would lose that argument because those 2 had amazing years.
Is it when you talk about the comparison for Bochy, like you just mentioned there, like a Phil Jackson type, is maybe the comparison in terms of like, hey, his track record or his resume says he should be at the very top, yet he doesn't seem to spring to my eyes often. Obviously, this guy's done with 1 team in comparison. Is he kind of Mike Tomlin-ish?
I think that's a good comp. He just wins. I mean, he just wins.
He wins everywhere. He's got one of the more decorated resumes, and yet he never springs to mind at the very beginning of like, that's one of the best.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.